Let us settle in as I share a profound excerpt from the book entitled The Heart, the Pathway to Life and Love, The Path with Heart. And the book is written by Jack Kornfield. And so I share this powerful excerpt with you. Dr. Naomi Raymond, a physician who uses art, meditation, and other spiritual practices in the healing of cancer patients, told me a moving story that illustrates the process of healing the heart, which accompanies a healing of the body. She describes a young man who was 24 years old when he came to her after one of his legs had been amputated at the hip in order to save his life from bone cancer. When she began her work with him, he had a great sense of injustice and a hatred for all healthy people. It seemed bitterly unfair to him that he had suffered this terrible loss so early in his life. His grief and rage were so great that it took several years of continuous work for him to begin to come out of himself and to heal. He had to heal not simply his body, but also his broken heart and wounded spirit. Dr. Naomi encouraged and supported him in telling his story by painting and moving and meditating and bringing his entire life into his awareness. As he slowly healed, he developed a profound compassion for others in similar situations. He began to visit people in the hospital who has also suffered severe physical losses. On one occasion, he told his physician he visited a young singer who was so depressed about the loss of her breasts that she would not even look at him. The nurses had the radio playing, probably hoping to cheer her up. It was a real hot day, and the young man had come in running shoes. Finally, desperate to get her attention, he unstrapped his artificial leg and began dancing around the room on his one leg, snapping his fingers to the music. She looked at him in amazement, and then she burst out laughing and said, "Man, if you can dance, I can sing." When this young man first began working with drawing, he made a crayon sketch of his own body in the form of a vase with a deep black crack running through it. He redrew the crack over and over, grinding his teeth with rage. Several years later, to encourage him to complete his process, my friend showed him his early pictures again. He saw the vase and said, "Oh, this one isn't finished." And when she suggested that he finish it, he did. He ran his finger along the crack, saying, "You see here, this is where the light comes through." With a yellow crayon, he drew light streaming through the crack into the body of the vase and said, "Our hearts can grow strong at the broken places." My friends, this young man's profound story illustrates for us all how our human journey, this journey we call life, is often filled with experiences that overwhelm us, filled with experiences that are painful physically, mentally, and emotionally. And when the pain mentally and physically become too intolerable to our human body and minds, one of the ways we try to cope is to shroud our hearts. And ironically, in doing so, the very things that we are trying to get respite from, such as bitterness, anger, rage, depression, sadness, loneliness, hopelessness, are like a cloud that just follows us, hovers over us, and kind of consumes us. But this young man shows us that when he was willing to experience the fullness of his darkness, the pain and suffering that he felt physically, the anger, the rage, the depression, the sadness, when he was able to draw it, speak it, he was able to be transformed. Let me use that word, he also demonstrates, I want to talk about the integration, that vase that he speaks of, that vase that represented his body with that crack. When I talk about transformation, I want to talk about integration. See, along the spiritual path, we try to, stuff it, hide it, be busy, do this, do that. And then when we invite it in to find out what is it asking us to do, we know that there's a resiliency of spirit. I watch it all the time in you. I see it active in my own life. We see it bear witness in this man's life, where something greater than our humanity, our depression, all that, we say yes to. And in that integration of our suffering, we say yes to moving from the portal of our human heart into the portal of cosmic love. But it's only when we're willing to do that. And so I'm going to share with you some slides about what are some symptoms of a shuttered heart. A lot of them you're probably aware of. But what I am hoping you do today is to not just have an intellectual experience, but to take it deep in. And then when I share some practices, what you probably are familiar with about how we unshutter our heart, how do we integrate the pain? What are these experiences of COVID, of isolation, the chaos in the school system and other places? What are they trying to call to us? How are they calling us to be the steadfast presence? Or perhaps they're calling us to do other work. We don't know until we embrace the wisdom of it. Yes, kick and scream, punch some pillows, and then we ask the questions deep within our heart and soul. And so as I share these, I invite you into that deep experience and take maybe one and see how you're willing to get support or to go within and to do a deeper dive yourself. So we have physical symptoms. Now, all physical symptoms, we are asked to go into that place of self-compassion, yes, but all physical symptoms can ask us to go deep within our hearts and see where we are shuttering ourselves. However, there are distinct physical dis-ease symptoms of the heart chakra. And so let's just take a look at these. So dis-ease of the physical heart, of our lungs, asthma, allergies, the circulatory system, our shoulders, arms, hands, breasts, our ribs, our diaphragm, and our thymus gland. Have you experienced any of these physical dis-ease or other places in your heart? And if the answer is yes, having had any physical symptoms, I ask you to breathe again. We did it in meditation, to breathe into them now. And to start to have the conversation, yes, with our divine body that is imbued with wisdom, and allow that conversation to continue to speak through you, to you, as you journal, as you paint, as you move. And then we have the symptoms that show up in our behaving, how we relate to life and others, where we notice that we're rigid and flexible. We only can see things in black or white. There's no gray. And in doing so, we have cut ourselves off in relationships because we want that sticking to the letter of the law is more important to us. Being right is more important to us. So notice if that's showing up. Judgment and criticism, where things have to be a certain way, where you engage in gossip, always trying to point out where somebody has their shortcomings, how people are always disappointing you and falling short in your life. Now, I'm not saying that we don't experience disappointment, but ultimately, each one of us, the only thing we have power over is ourselves. And in any moment, we have a choice to breathe into our divinity or into our woundedness. Yes, breathe into both of them. But as we claim dominion, who am I willing to be in this moment? Am I willing to have my suffering spill out onto others? Or am I willing to feel it, embrace it, create safe containers of our rage, as Valerie Courtort in See No Stranger? We also can see it comes up in controlling. We can control our space by being busy, controlling others, having things to go a certain way. Demanding. Do we have demands and expectations of others that they seem to not be fulfilled? And we let them know over and over again how they are falling short. Are we intolerant? Oh my God, we can have a whole, well, we did speak of this, the polarization, right? Where we're intolerant of each other. Now we have a right to make choices. Then how do we choose to show up as we make that choice that we are led to do? Do we berate others for their different choices? Can we embrace, even in this COVID experience, that I'm making this choice and I'm doing it from a place of love? We can't determine whether somebody gets vaccinated or not, wears a mask or not, from what place in consciousness they are coming from. But we want to, right? We want to point fingers at each other. I'm saying do what is you're led to do to be safe. There's things we do in this world, right? We obey the speed limit. We put a seatbelt on. A child wears, a young man wears a helmet when they play football to be safe, right? But I am not here to tell you what you should or should not do. But I am saying that even in our differences, we have a choice of how we will show up with our whole heart and soul in our disagreement. When we agree to disagree in love, it means that I may not like what your opinion is or agree with it, but nevertheless, I'm going to show up in my divinity in speaking and behaving. And then we move to the isolating and withdrawing. Yes, we are in situations where maybe, the physical space and connection might be different, but ask your spirit, how may I come out like Karen and Lynn so bravely shared today, in a way where perhaps they shared and they opened themselves up? Are you removed and aloof? Have a hard time showing your feelings? And there we go, moving into our feelings. Here are the feelings that are usually associated with shuddering the heart, although all emotions, grief, resentment, bitterness, anger, hatred, jealousy, depression, loneliness, compassion, and empathy. Take a deep breath, my friends. What is alive in you? What have you not allowed to be alive in you to sing its full song? Breathe. For in the breath we allow. We move to unhealed wounds of the heart, betrayal, loss. Boy, we have had our share of loss this year, more so than usual. All forms of loss, the loss of the way we do things, the loss of maybe a workplace that used to be one way and is now different, the loss of a loved one. So many people have lost loved ones this year. And the loss, we are not separated. 700,000 people have made their transition. That's just from COVID, right? We are all connected. That loss is palpable to us all. Do we tune it out? Now, I'm not saying to get sucked up by it, but do we allow it to sing its song in us? Illness, hardships, abuse, neglect, and trauma. Yes, trauma. We used to think of trauma as, if I was a soldier who fought in the war, if I was battered and physically beaten. But trauma is that experience where we didn't know what to do in the moment to feel safe. And so we closed and asked our heart off. We have trapped energy within our own bodies. And so that is something that all of us on some level have experienced. And are we aware of it? And our unmet needs. I'm not talking about being needy. All of us at the core have the desire to be loved, to be accepted, to be embraced, to be heard, to matter, and to use ourselves in a way that is purposeful and meaningful. And so a lot of times when we have those unmet needs, we develop these self-limiting beliefs. And here are just a few. I'm unlovable. I don't belong. I'm not wanted. I can't trust myself or others. I'm a failure. Life is a constant damn struggle. I don't matter. I'm broken. I'm not enough. There's not enough. And there's so many others. Take a deep breath. Are any of these familiar to you? Or is there another that is something you have brought in based on some unmet needs, not knowing what to do in a stressful situation way back in childhood and as you journey through life? Allow it to have its song. Allow it to reveal what wants to be revealed, to be integrated and transform into beauty. And so how do we unshutter our hearts? There are many practices that you are familiar with. And I share a couple. As we did Robert Brummett's Living Originally, we know that appreciation, taking a moment to appreciate everything. In the class that I'm in, having the cup of coffee, we smell it, we feel it in our mouths, savor it, savoring the beauty of the work of our bodies as it takes it in. Appreciation softens the heart. Gratitude softens the heart. Kindness opens the heart. And generosity, giving of ourselves in ways, is how we flow from the cosmic heart. And yes, compassion. And sometimes we don't even have that compassion for ourselves. And so, just like the young man in the story, my friends, how do you integrate the wound? How do you allow that darkness, the crack, to be the place where light comes in? Tell your story. Tell it to, whether it's journaling or somebody who you know will hail the high watch and not get into a place of victimhood with you. Draw it, paint it, dance it, move it. There's so many things here that so many practitioners right here in this own community who do yoga, who do tapping, who do, Karen does the work with Sue Mortar. But I also invite you to enter into that, allowing it to be present, knowing that your soul has the wisdom that you so seek, but embracing it all. Tell the story, feel your feelings, forgive yourself and others, which we've gone over many practices, but just having compassion for yourself and others, and simply say, oh my gosh, I know what suffering is too. Me too. Me too. Let me allow this, to let the breath of life flow freely through this. And then, like this young man, as he integrated all of the pain and suffering that he experienced, he showed up in that young woman's hospital room powerfully, lovingly, humorously, vulnerably, as the presence. Because as he allowed the unshuttering of his heart, he tapped into something so profound that goes beyond our human minds, our understanding. But it is the joy and beauty that we so long for. And so, my friends, how will you tell your story? How will you be willing to heal? And I close with a reading that I think summarizes it pretty beautifully. Oscar Wilde wrote, "Hearts are meant to be broken. As we heal, our hearts break open to feel fully. Powerful feelings, deep, unspoken parts of ourselves arise. And our task in meditation is first to let them move through us, then to recognize them and allow them to sing their song." A poem by Wendy Berry illustrates this beautifully. I go among trees and sit still. All my stirrings become quiet around me, like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places, where I left them asleep like cattle. Then, oh then, what I am afraid of comes. I live for a while in its sight. What I fear in it leaves it, and the fear of it leaves me. It sings, and I hear its song. What we find when we listen to the songs of our rage or fear, loneliness or longing is that they do not stay forever. Rage turns into sorrow. Sorrow turns into tears. Tears may fall for a long time, but then the sun comes out. A memory of old loss sings to us. Our body shakes and relives the moment of loss. Then the armoring around that loss gradually softens. And in the midst of the song of tremendous grieving, the pain of that loss finally finds sweet release. In truly listening to our most painful songs, we can learn the divine art of forgiveness. While there are a whole systematic practices of forgiveness that can be cultivated, both forgiveness and compassion arise spontaneously with the opening of the heart. Somehow, in feeling our own pain and sorrow, our ocean of tears, we come to know that ours is a shared pain, and the mystery and the beauty of pain of life cannot be separated. This universal pain, too, is part of our connection with one another, and in the face of it, we cannot withhold or love any longer. My friends, may you listen, listen, listen to your heart's song. Namaste.